I'd like to call this public meeting to order. This is a statutory public meeting under the Planning Act, held pursuant to the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act as amended, respecting the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments for 2248 Center Street. Up first, we have the applicant presentation. 2248 Center Street, Ellenburg, proposed OPA ZBA. I'll call on Cam Lang for the applicant presentation. Cam, are you here? Go ahead. You have up to 10 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Ugolini and fellow members of council. My name is Cam Lang. I'm a planner with Lally Homes. John Lally, the owner of the subject property, is here tonight, sitting beside me on the left. He will likely be saying a few words following my presentation. I understand the clerk has the presentation that he needs to. Okay. Next slide, please. So the property location, it's located in the village of Ellenburg, centrally located on the east side of Center Street, between Highway 20 and Barron Road. It's almost 2 acres in size, and it has 80 meters of lot frontage along Center Street. Next slide, please. This slide presents the former use of the property. It was the former site of Doherty's Meatpacking Plant, which operated between the years of 1977 to 2010. What I'm showing here is the 2018 aerial photo, which showed the subject property prior to demolition, and then on the right is the 2020 aerial photo, which is post-demolition. Now, the building was demolished and the debris was removed in 2019. Now, in order to prepare the lands for residential development, a record of site condition is required by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. That process is well underway with the ministry. Engaged in this process is Oak Hill Environmental, a reputable environmental consulting firm here in the area in St. Catharines. Phase 1 and 2 environmental site assessments have been completed, and Oak Hill is in the final stages of preparing the record of site condition for filing with the ministry. This involves studying the lands, soil sampling, groundwater sampling, and to prepare the lands so that they're suitable for residential development. Whenever you move from an industrial or commercial use to something more sensitive, an RSC is required. It's in the public interest and in the neighborhood interest and the city's interest to see this site receive an RSC that's suitable for residential development. The only other feature on this property that I want to make mention of is in the along the northern boundary is a tributary water course regulated by the NPCA. They have no issues with the proposed development. All they have requested is a 5-meter buffer from our development to the water course, which will be implemented and reviewed at the site plan control stage of development. Next slide, please. Just want to go to the circulation public notice of the application. Notice of the public hearing was dated May 31st, and it was mailed to landowners within 120 meters of the subject property in accordance with the Planning Act. Notice was also posted on the city website. The contents of the notice, which you see on the right-hand side of the slide, clearly indicate that what the scope of the applications are. That is 1, an official plan amendment, a special policy area to permitted requested density increase. We're not changing the land use designation here, and I'll go over that later on in the presentation. and to change the zoning to facilitate the development of 15 residential townhouses. Both oral and written comments were invited by the public notice. Next slide. And this is where I was somewhat excited on Friday when I was advised by city staff that they had not received any written comments. Since that time, however, I understand comment from the property owner at 1532 Barron Road provided a written notice or a written comment yesterday, and she will be unable to attend tonight. I won't read the entirety of the comment, but it was in regard to traffic safety and walkability in the area, wondering about the status of the Allenburg traffic safety study that the city initiated last year. I don't have any information on that, which is a question that's probably better directed to city staff. I understand also that there are 4 registered speakers who I suspect are in the audience behind me tonight who registered to speak within the last few days. Next slide, please. Just in terms of the neighborhood context, the subject property is essentially surrounded by utility corridors, transportation and utility corridors, 2 Hydro One rights of way, and a CN rail corridor, which is sporadically used on the eastern boundary. It's surrounding this is primarily large lot, low-density residential development that developed on private services at the time, which explains why they are large lots. That does have a bearing on the density increase that we're seeking, and I'll review that on a future slide. Other development in the area is the Allenburg Estates subdivision, a 21 lot single detached residential subdivision to the southwest, and that is primarily it. The other thing I want to make mention of is that that there are the Niagara Region Bicycle Network is comprised of the East Side Trail, Center Street, Barron Road, and it essentially surrounds this area as well. Obviously, Allenburg Bridge and proximity to Highway 20 is provides a good transportation outlet in this area. Next slide, please. In terms of the immediate surroundings, and this kind of gives you the context, the Hydro One corridors are rather wide. They're 60 meters in width. The CN rail corridor is 30 meters in width. The subject property is very well buffered by these existing utility corridors. The Welland Canal and Trail Network is on the west side, and the city of Thorold owns the majority of lands here as well. These lands here are designated environmental protection 2 in the official plan, which likely precludes any development from happening there. And the blue dots represent single detached dwellings that are adjacent to or in the vicinity of the proposed development. I understand 2 of those owners have registered to speak here tonight. Next slide, please. The proposed development includes 15 townhouse units, 2 stories with finished basements. Geotechnical study has been completed to support those basements. Single car driveways and garages are proposed. So purchasers will know in advance that if they own 3 or 4 cars, this is not a development that they should be buying into. One of the things that will preclude users or unit owners from using the visitor parking, and we've provided visitor parking within this railway setback over here, which is a fairly efficient use of lands. The condo declaration can restrict unit owners from using visitor parking for their own vehicles. So that's one way of ensuring that visitor parking is actually used for its purpose. We've looked at the geometry, the turning radii. We can get garbage trucks turning around in this area and fire trucks. We've looked at the geometry and studied that. The other thing I want to make mention of is the previous use of the property had 3 accesses to Center Street. And this proposed development eliminates the access up here, generally over here, and then provides the best possible location for the ingress and egress here. We had our consultants study the sight lines in this area, and it was determined that this location is the best one to service the property. In terms of separation, we have about 70 feet of separation between the rear of the units along the south edge here and the existing house at 2244 Center Street. In contrast, the previous meatpacking plant had almost a 0 meter setback to the rear property line. So I think this is far more desirable than the previous use, obviously, in terms of compatibility with existing single attached dwellings. Next slide, please. And now, the requested official plan amendment, as I discussed a little earlier, we're not seeking to change the existing urban living area designation. The current designation, urban living area, permits townhouses. And so obviously our proposed development is a permitted use, and it is the intent of the official plan to permit townhouses. The nature of what we're actually seeking with the special policy area is to permit a density increase from 9.77 units per hectare to 19.38 units per hectare. Now, how they calculate why we arrived at the 9.77 units per hectare is that the unit density may be increased by up to 75% of the existing gross density of lands within 75 meters of the site. Now, when we look at the lands within 75 meters of the site, as I said before, the majority of them were developed, large lots on private services. They are in the urban area. The current policy framework would not allow for that type of development within an urban area. So what we do have is we have a very low density by way of previous development. What I do want to make mention of, so that's why it seems like the density increase is a little larger. But the one thing I want to mention is that the co-author of our planning justification report was the previous planning director here, and he actually authored that density increase, or that density policy in the official plan. And the intent of that policy was designed to help control and permit increased densities in the main urban area of Thorold, primarily focused on the downtown transition and regeneration overlays. These areas were experiencing growth in the form of higher density unit types and styles. The policy was designed for a gradual increase in density to transition into higher densities near the downtown core without an amendment to the plan. The issue is that the same policies apply to all urban living area designated lands, including Allenburg. But what that policy didn't recognize was the history of urban sprawl and the inefficient use of lands, and particularly because they developed on private services. So I'm
going to ask you to start wrapping up because you're well over time.
I apologize. Next slide, please. The requested zoning amendment is required to permit townhouses, which are not permitted by the existing zoning. We're not seeking any special provisions or regulations. The proposed development will conform to the underlying R3 and R3D zones that we're seeking. The other thing I want to make mention of here is that the city transportation did not support a public road in this for this development, and I agree with that. It's not needed. It's a small area. This is the other reason that we need to do a private street development here to make efficient use of the area, and obviously townhouses are more suitable on a private street development than single detached. Next slide, please. Most of the comments from agencies and departments can be addressed at the site plan approval stage. The key ones I want to make mention of: the Niagara region has no objections. They support and agree with the planning justification report that we provided, essentially that the proposed development will help the city of Thorold meet its minimum 25% intensification target. The Thorold Planning Department, care of MHBC, who's participating tonight, made mention of no concerns in principle with the development concept, and most of the comments can be addressed at the site plan approval stage. Next slide, please. CN Rail and Hydro One had the most extensive comments, and these are simply in regard to ensuring that there's no impacts from things like drainage on their corridor lands, and they'll be heavily involved in our site plan approval process through the review of that. The one thing I want to make mention of is that there was no traffic impact study required during our pre-consultation. One of the reasons for this is because our proposed development is likely to have less vehicles generated from it than the previous use of the property, and also in the context that there was an ongoing traffic safety study being done in Allenburg. So I believe that was supposed to address some of the impacts that this development would generate as well. So I don't want to take up any more time. Next slide, please.
I'll open the floor for questions.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll open the floor for questions to Mr. Lang. Are there any questions from council? Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Lang, for the presentation. I'll ask the same question that's been asked for every other development like this. Do you propose any sidewalks in this?
We did have a comment from the Niagara, any sidewalks internally.
Correct.
Internally, yeah, that'll be an issue that's addressed during the site plan review phase. The District School Board of Niagara commented that they wanted to see a sidewalk internally so that students could obviously walk from the site to the street network. Yes.
Okay, that's great. Good to hear. Thank you.
Councillor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Similar question. You'll have internal sidewalks. Is there a plan to put an external sidewalk also along Center Street?
Well, this was a discussion that we were having with the city engineering or city transportation, was the urbanization of Center Street. That would be a matter that's addressed during the site plan approval stage of development, and it could be a requirement as part of that agreement. Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for those comments. I have a couple more questions here. One, there's 15 units. I'm just sort of looking at the diagram here. So there should be one car parked in the garage, one in the driveway, and then there'll be 10 spots for visitors. If 15 people come to visit, what happens to the other 5 cars that have no allocated parking spaces?
Well, this is... This can happen in any situation. Obviously they would have to park, either they would have to leave or they would have to park along the private road. People find parking wherever they can, generally speaking. We've actually oversupplied our visitor parking. And if I'm not mistaken, it's not even required. So we've actually made excellent use of the railway setback, that 15-meter non-build setback, to accommodate visitor parking.
Yeah, just if it could be noted, yeah, I have concerns with parking. I know other places don't have that parking spots either, and they cause problems within the community. This is not a very urban setting like downtown Thorold or urban part of Thorold. Everyone out here has to drive. There's no way around it. The bus transportation is not the greatest out there, nor do I see that changing in the immediate future. So parking is very, very critical, especially Center Street's a very busy street. I know I've talked to several of the residents that live on there. There's a lot of complaints of car speeding. You don't want to throw more cars parked on Center Street. So I think that has to be given some more consideration if you could get additional parking spots.
We can certainly look at that as part of our site plan and see if we can accommodate more visitor parking in the site. There's probably opportunity.
Okay, excellent. No, appreciate that. And then the second one is, I always ask, will there be a formal snow removal plan put in place regarding the property here? Because you'll have your own private road. Fortunately, I see others, they take the snow and they just dump it on the other side of the street, which is either going to be private property or city-owned property. That's not a viable solution for me. So is that something that'll be looked
That'll be
at?
addressed, absolutely, and to ensure that the runoff from the snow is discharged to the correct area, or that it doesn't impact areas that it shouldn't as well, which is always a key thing that's addressed, is where you're accommodating that snow storage. And it's likely that it can be accommodated at the overflow of the curb at the end of those hammerheads.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I just wanted those to be considered in the plan and report when it comes forward, and I thank you for answering those questions.
Thank you. I seen Councillor Sentence, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thank you for the presentation. As you can see, parking is an issue. Already out there, we have a traffic problem, so we need to make sure we do this right out there. And if you can help us with these things, traffic calming, come up with ideas, help us with sidewalks, stop signs, stuff like that, because there's already an existing problem, and it doesn't matter what you add cars to an existing problem and it's going to get worse. So we need to be, that's my biggest thing. Drainage, sewers, you'll figure that out at site plan point of when you do that. But our big thing is the traffic is already a problem out there, and we need your help to mitigate that if we're going to go forward with all this. So I'm hoping you guys can work with the city and help out there, because we need it. And I'm not sure where our traffic calming study is at, but it'd be great if you could work with the city and help us out.
Thank you.
If I- Could I respond to that?
Yeah,
Just
go ahead.
Just quickly. And I'm sure it's going to come up with the residents behind me when they speak as well. But the one comment that I didn't make in my presentation was that the way that you do finance or obtain revenues to pay for these upgrades is through development charges. And that's why having 15 townhouses versus, let's say, one single detached dwelling, the numbers are significant. The city development charge for a single detached dwelling, the 2022 rate was $20,189. Almost half of that is devoted to roads, highways or roads, $9,364. For multiples, it's townhouses, $13,351. You times that by 15 townhouses here, and that's a total of over $200,000, which would give you $100,000 for roads. So the way that you actually pay for upgrades is through the collection of development charges. So the best way to do that is to finance it through intensification.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, thank you for the presentation. Is the Deputy Clerk able to bring up the proposed development slide again? And while he's doing that, if I could just ask, what are the proposed number of bedrooms per unit?
3, yeah. John knew off the top of his head.
Good. I also just want to state that I share the same concerns as the other councillors who spoke regarding snow removal, which can be an issue at times in our city in the wintertime for sure. And I'm a bit curious about who's going to enforce the parking restrictions in the allotted guest parking. I love the fact that there's allotted guest parking, but what's to stop units 1 to 6 filling them up?
Well, that would be, as I said, it'd be an item that you can put restrictions in the condo declaration, right? So it would be the board itself who would enforce that, and I'm not precisely sure the mechanism that the board, the condo board would have, but I do know that
But that will be added.
that would be a restriction in the condo declaration, yeah, and it can be included if that's a concern. It certainly can be included as a condition of condominium approval.
Yeah, I think that should be.
And this slide maybe identifies that there is a lot of space that we do have. That I mean, we can look at For snow storage and for additional visitor parking if we can. The one reason we didn't propose visitor parking down here is one of the reasons is due to the presence of the existing detached dwelling, but
Well, that was actually, that's leading exactly to my next question. You said there were approximately 70 feet from units 9 to 15 to the fence line.
no, not the fence line, to the structure itself. There is 40 feet.
Okay.
There's over 12 meters between here to, there will be a fence along, yeah.
Okay.
There will be screening provided, yeah.
So is there something planned for that land right now? I assume it's cleared. I was out there, I saw the heavy equipment was out there clearing. So is it completely vacant right now?
The property is,
That back section behind units
In
9
here.
to 15.
or in,
Right there.
yeah, it's all
Directly
cleared.
south.
Correct, yes, yeah.
So do you have plans for that? Will you be planting? Will you be?
Well, we will be through the site plan approval process. A landscape plan will be a requirement, and certainly, I don't have the condo plan up here, but there will be the exclusive use of some privacy, some landscape or amenity areas exclusive to each unit that extend roughly, I think, 6 or 7 meters back. The rest will be part of the common element that will be maintained by the condo corporation, and we will certainly have landscaping requirements, whether it's fencing, planting, usually tree planting along property lines, etc.
Are you planning to put a fence in that very southern section that butts up against the
Right here?
closest neighbor?
I'm almost certain that the city will make us do it anyway. I just, usually in any, whether it's a site plan for a townhouse development, it's a standard requirement is that you do adequate screening or fencing for where it abuts existing development, residential development.
Excellent. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Okay, is there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation, Cam, and we're going to move on to registered speakers.
Thank you.
Up first, I have Diana and Julian Roberts, residents of 2244 Center Street, to speak to the applications. Please note you have maximum 5 minutes to address members of council. So
Each?
5 minutes as the two of you.
Is that right?
Oh, that's kind of unfair. Well, good afternoon. My name is Diana Roberts. My maiden name is Hunt. This is my husband, Julian. We are here on behalf of our neighbors, my childhood friends, and my community. I would like to speak about the history of 2248 Center Street, the property in question. This property was purchased in 1964 by my parents, Herb and Joan Hunt, from Harold and Eunice Doherty. The business name was Doherty's Meats Limited. It was an extremely important food business to the province of Ontario. 2 out of 3 meat meals that were consumed in southern Ontario from Highway 400 through to Windsor came out of that plant. The challenges the city put upon us were these. The city didn't have enough water to supply Doherty's. They told us that we would have to use our well. That involved installing a filtration system. The city wanted us to put in our own microbial sewage plant. That was done also at no expense to the city. The snow plowing of Center Street was done by my father, not the city, not the region. When meat was needed to supply our local children's sports leagues, Pats baseball, hockey, or the fishing tournaments, dinner banquets that were also held for our seniors at the Allenburg Community Center was all donated by Doherty's Meats. That was the past, and this is now. Last week, there was not enough water pressure to flush the toilets on Center Street. So how does adding 15 more houses help that problem? The water and sewage department still haven't fixed the sinkhole on the boulevard. It caves in every few months. The rainwater and snowmelt flooding Center Street hasn't been addressed. Is this because the water tanks under the city are filled, or because you have no one to maintain the controls? Trimming bushes and shrubs that block the view for traffic only happens when I phone the city and advise them. And some of your girls have been pretty nasty too. I've had to threaten them. The traffic calming techniques of installing extra stop signs was a good attempt, but sadly didn't do anything. You would think the soft shoulders, big ditches, and unevenness of the street would have naturally helped to slow traffic. The city can't control the existing traffic, so how does adding 15 more houses help? Very obviously, the city has infrastructure problems they cannot cope with. The 15 new houses being built on Barron Road and Center Street, along with these potential 15 townhouses, and the home Mr. Lally wants to build for himself, will put the water and sewer problem over the top. In addition, there is a very real lack of services for Allenburg, Thorold South, and Port Robinson. For example, no walk-in clinic. The fire department in Thorold South is often unmanned. The police services are stretched. EMS is often on the wrong side of the bridge. Also, the insanity of traffic volume and high speeds on the S-bends and the traffic circle on Highway 20. This is only going to be worse once the bridge replacement of the feeder canal starts. More people will not help these issues. The city has asked us here to express our opinions and concerns with changing the zoning. As this subdivision directly impacts our property, I will agree to the current R1 zoning for 5 houses, as my father had agreed with the city. At that time, the property was zoned non-conforming use. The land would lie empty for 10 years and then revert to R1. Now, if they've said that the building was torn down in 2019, that would mean in 2029 it would revert back to R1 zoning. So it has not lied fallow for 10 years. So I will honor my father's agreement. If you choose to put 5 houses, that will be what I will honor. I will not accept and I will not facilitate the development of townhouses on that property. You, the city, cannot handle it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And
I'd just like to add myself
Jeff, go ahead.
that living in the area and experiencing the traffic demands around there, adding 15 residences, and then everybody has a friend, and then they might have people over for dinner, then the parking lot filled. I've seen the problems around the city myself. I was a contractor for the city for years. Parking, as you know, in certain areas of the city are ridiculous. You're actually putting upon us a death trap. That road is actually traveled a lot by farm equipment, people on horseback. In fact, most of the mothers with young children no longer walk on Center Street. It's an impossibility to really police. You'd have to bust the budget and put someone there 24/7. It just seems above and beyond the call of duty to add 15 residences to such a small 80-foot or 80-meter lot, to put all those people in that confined area. It's almost in a valley too. It's got like basically a swamp on the, what would be your north side. And then there's our residents on the other side, or almost in the center of it. I think it's be just an undue demand on such a small piece of property. But I'm not against someone developing and trying doing the right thing and stuff like that. I understand this. But I think it's just a bit aggressive, and it's more of an invasion of traffic to our lifestyle. And I do believe it's very unsafe. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. So we'll go through all the speakers, and then if there's any questions, we'll address them at the end. I want to thank Diane and Julian Roberts for their presentation. Up next, David Bent, a resident from 2212 Center Street. And once again, you have a maximum of 5 minutes to address council. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Basically, what Diana said and Julian is our traffic. Today, you guys don't come down and take a look. We got transport trucks coming down our road now, getting diverted off from the traffic circle. That's where their GPS is taking them. and they're not traveling slowly down our road. Also, with traffic, it's just horrendous. People aren't walking like they used to. They're not taking their dogs for a walk. It is an invasion with 15 townhouses. I think it should remain single-family dwellings. I lived in a condo project similar to this when I lived out in Alberta with the 10 extra parking spaces in the back. That never works out. People are building another extra bedroom down in the basement. All you need is a couple parties on one weekend, and then they're out on the road. There's no possible safe way people at nighttime when they drive down that road, because people just fly off that road. There's going to be someone killed eventually. Anyhow, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentations, David. And now I'll call on Kyle Burketto, resident of 2239 Center Street, to speak to the application. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you very much. I think every single one of us is going to discuss the traffic issues, and I'm not going to break the mold. I'm going to as well. I also don't think any of us are crazy or delusional enough to think we're going to stop development. It's a question of, is it smart development? Does it reflect the history of the area? Does it reflect the feel of our existing community? I live directly across the street from this proposal. My house was built in 1870. Diana, Julian, your house? 1860. You're talking about a deeply entrenched historic neighborhood. From Center Street all the way down to Barron Road, there's 15 houses on that entire stretch of Center Street. We're proposing doubling it in a very small confined space, and that's in addition to the, I believe, 22 homes that are already prepared to break ground up at the top there in Allenberg Estates. As has been mentioned, the speed with which vehicles travel down our road is crazy. You can hear and feel the vehicles before you can see them. We have transport trucks which are prohibited from driving down our streets routinely, coming off because they can't navigate the traffic circle at Barker Parkway. For those who aren't really aware, Center Street's on an angle with two little dips, and it was really took me yesterday. I was coming home from work and turned left to come home, and I could see my brother and my nephew walking across the street. My nephew's 5 years old. And as I got a little closer, my nephew's head disappeared. And I thought, I know where he is, but someone who blinked wouldn't. And at 100 kilometers an hour, we're asking for tragedy. Now, these folks are not going to be from the area, most likely. They'll be driving at a high rate of speed, coming in and out. Everyone has mentioned people walking and now avoiding this street because it's become dangerous. Parking, 10 spots. That is great, and I applaud that. But after that, there is nowhere else for anyone to park. Center Street is narrow. It's an old country road. We're talking about an old country village that has been kind of relegated by, a century and a half of councils. And that's fine. But to jump from that to this rapid urbanization just simply doesn't make sense. I completely support Diana and Julian. 5 lovely single-family detached dwellings there makes sense. It would fit the character and the historic nature of the community. 15 townhomes, it does not. And again, this is not NIMBYism. I recognize that at some point there will be newcomers to our area, but 15 all at once is just, it is too much. And as the speakers before me, and certainly the ones that will follow, will mention, the city services in our area are not up to par for what is needed for 2 major developments to happen in the same confined space in a quick period of time. Really, that's all that I would like to mention. I'm sure that those who follow me will make it sound like a little bit of an echo, but I do sincerely hope that before you make a decision, each one of you and your colleagues will take a moment, drive out to Center Street, park at the top of the road, and just take a look for 5 minutes, stand off to the side, and just watch. Just watch what happens. I think you will be surprised if you haven't done so already. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for your presentation. And up next, I have Fred Regier. Is Fred here? Yes. And Fred, you'll need to state your address before you speak, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, for this opportunity. My name is Fred Regier, 1555 Henderson Street in Allenburg. Basically on the east side of the Hydro Corridor, adjacent to the Doherty's, we still call it the Doherty's property there. Yeah, we've been living there, my wife and I reside there. We own the property. We've been living there since 2002, and have seen some pretty big changes over the years with demographics of people, families, kind of moving from the elderly kind of age to much younger families. Now you'll see, we sit out in the front porch many times, we'll see 10 people, either with strollers, most of them with dogs, walking around. They come around Center Street from Gaynor, they stop at Center Street, sorry, if they come from Gaynor down Henderson, they stop at Center, most of them turn around and go back the other way. They don't walk down Center Street, most of them. There's just two things I want to mention in relation to the proposed zoning change. Both have been mentioned already. One is the Allenburg Transportation Study. The second is the water and sewer infrastructure concern. So the number one Allenburg Transportation Study, we were asked to come to a public meeting last year, beginning of the year. I think it was April or May, I think, and I was surprised how many residents actually came. The Allenburg Community Center was full. There was a lot of information on these placards, and at the end we were given opportunity to propose, in written form or digital, email in form, to bring any suggestions about the transportation. I call it the safety study, because it's all about safety. And there were a lot of suggestions sent in, I understand. Just on my piece of paper, I think I had 14 that I sent in personally. To date, I think the only thing I see is a painted stripe down the street, and 2 stop signs. And I don't know what the painted stripe does. Definitely not on Center Street. It doesn't do anything to slow cars down. The 2 stop signs, I'm not sure what they do, because they have been planted at the end of Center Street at Barron, where there was already 1 stop sign. So it doesn't really slow anything down over there. So I guess my question to you, council members, is, has the study been completed? If so, what proposals have been made to the city of Thorold for that area? If I could ask those two first. Because it has a direct implication on the proposal of this, of any building, in the new buildings in the area.
Jason, do you want to speak to that? Even though you're here to present, not to ask questions to staff, but we will take those points, and they will be addressed in the report.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, thank
Because
you.
our Director of Public Works is not here at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to identify, we don't have the appropriate staff to,
Yeah, but it will be addressed because you've asked a question, it's been captured, and we'll make sure it's included in the remarks that follow.
Okay.
It's a fair question.
I mean, I would assume all the council members need to know that information in detail
Absolutely.
to be able to properly answer this proposal for rezoning. That's why I thought the answer was here. Number 2, water and sewer infrastructure. I guess the the only thing here is I just go by what I've experienced in our house since 2002. The pressure has been, the pressure of the water has been reduced considerably over the last 5 years. To a place now where I'm wondering, okay, when are the toilets not going to be, able to flush, or how long will the tanks take to fill up before someone else needs the bathroom? So I guess there's a. I'll just put that question out there for you to consider as well. Has this water sewer infrastructure been slated for an upgrade, and when will that upgrade be coming? Just to finish off,
Go ahead.
I would like to ask the council members to vote against this proposal until the water and sewer infrastructure can be upgraded and until the safety concerns can be satisfied.
Thank you very much. Fred, thank you for your presentation, and those points have been captured. Has there, at this time, is there anybody present in the chamber who wishes to speak on the application? Please come forward to the microphone and state your name and address.
Thank you for taking me on. I only found out this afternoon about this meeting, so I hadn't.
Oh, but you're, that's why we do this, so that anybody in the chambers is, or online is allowed time to speak.
Okay, my name is Patty Lenson, and I live at 2311 Center Street, and I think I live in the oldest house on the street. It was built in 1835. What was yours? 1860. 60, yeah. But the people inside aren't that old yet. I think most of you know where I live. I live right on the corner of Highway 20 and Center Street. And if you want to see a change in traffic, since I was born and raised in that house, I won't tell you what year, but anyhow, I've noticed a difference in my lifetime, the traffic on Highway 20. It's just horrendous. They not only go busy or fast on Center, they come off the bridge, and if they're turning right, they're already on 2 wheels coming down in front of our house. And there's going to be an accident someday with the lineup waiting when the bridge is up and the lineup gets on the east side of Center Street going down towards this development. And sometimes the people on the other side can't get out of their driveways. They're parked solid all the way down. And then you could wait, honest to goodness, you could wait 15 to 20 minutes. When I worked in Welland, I had to turn left. I could sit there 15, 20 minutes waiting to try to make a left-hand turn. It's just horrendous. The traffic is speedy, of course, obviously. And like I said, people are mentioning there are 21 houses on Center Street, Kyle. I counted them. You're going to add 50 in this new development and 21 at the end, which is 36 houses. Most houses today have 2 cars, right? You're talking 72 extra cars possibly using Center Street on a daily basis, going to work back and forth. And of course, you added traffic when you put the hockey school over on Gaynor. Obviously, some are coming that way, some might go the Barron Road way. We have enough traffic on the highway now just with the local people. And it's been a small community. Everybody pretty well knows everybody. A very friendly village. Everybody gets along. And to see another 72 cars going up and down that highway is not a safety feature for sure. There's going to be an accident, and I think you're going to have an accident at the corner of Center and Highway 20. It's horrendous, the traffic. So I guess that's all I want to say. It's traffic, traffic, traffic. I'd invite all of you to come and sit in my driveway. I won't charge you. Park your car for maybe an hour or two, and you will see the traffic, the speed. I mean, I don't know what the speed limit should be anyhow in the town, maybe 35? And they're all going over the speed limit, I mean, constantly. So anytime you want to come and park my driveway, you're welcome, okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you for your presentation. Is there anyone else in the chamber or online? Is there anyone online? No? Is there anyone else in the chamber that wishes to speak? Go ahead. State your name.
Hello, my name's John Lally. I live at 1120 Hay Street, Hill. I just want to thank everybody for their comments. I just want to address a couple of questions that Ken, you had. Would I be willing to work with the city regarding traffic and other concerns that these neighbors have? And the answer is 100%. And knowing my background, what I've done in Niagara Region as a developer, I've always listened to the public and worked and made it work and made areas safer. And going back before I even bought this property, I contacted the region, I contacted the city, I had meetings with the city, I had a pre-con meeting, and we discussed traffic. And you know, what we intend to build will certainly be better than the trucks coming out of the facility and getting it down and putting in some residential that backs onto a hydro corridor. The city and city staff thought that would be an improvement. I didn't come up with a number of 15 units. This working with the city, working with a consultant out of Mississauga that was employed by the city, working with the region. We looked at different hammerheads. We looked at different ways of putting in overflow parking to address that. And to your question, Ken, would I be willing to work with the city for more overflow parking? The answer is 100%. And how I can deal with that is I do own the land around Julian and Diana's home, and I've had different talks with them, and I have mentioned to them that on that property maybe I only build one house, and today that's the plan. It would be a house for me, but I do own that parcel of land, owns the land up and all the way over to that other parcel. And if you want to put up that picture, I can show you. So I do have the ability to certainly put in more snow removal. I do have the ability to put in more parking because I do own that land. So I just wanted to let you know I have been in discussions with the region. I have been in discussions with the Conservation Authority. As you know, it's a lot of work working with the Conservation Authority in setting plans together of what we would plant there, all different areas. And you can see where Julian and Diana's house is, the blue dot there. And beside it, before where the fence would go, that yellow line where it says Hydro 1, I own that land there. And it goes all the way up and around. So I could definitely work with the region, the city, the conservation to try to get in more overflow and more snow removal to help address some of the neighbors' concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, so is there any further speakers? Seeing none, are there any questions from council to any of the speakers? Seeing none, I want to thank all the speakers for coming tonight, and this is why we hold these meetings so your voice is heard, and everything that was presented tonight has been captured, as well as any written comments that the city received. Okay, we're gonna move on to the planning report. Go ahead, Councillor DeAngelo.
No, I had a question, but I'll wait. Thank you.
Okay. Planning report DS 34, 2023, 2248 Center Street, proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, D0902 2023 and D1404 2023. This report is only presented to council and the public for information purposes. It is currently open for questions and comment from members of City Council. Please note, all comments will be captured by city staff and incorporated into the final report, which will be brought forward to the council, to a future council meeting for consideration. At this time, are there any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor DeAngelo.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make sure that that report gets distributed to all the residents that were here this evening, way in advance of the council meeting. So when it becomes available to us on a Thursday, it's also available to all the public, so they can make, if they want to come back and
And
make
the
comments.
city clerk has said that will.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure because we had a lot of comments here and there was a lot of questions that were asked, and I know the citizens would like answers.
And those will also be, they're all duly noted and they need to be addressed, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to
Okay.
make sure.
Okay, so, go ahead, Matthew.
Just speaking to the time, Mr. Mayor, knowing there is a that is to start at 6:30, you have 15 minutes to obtain quorum, and you do have quorum here, so I would perhaps put it to you to put to the members of council. You can call to order the council meeting now and then set it to recess in order to finish.
Yeah, we will do that. I just want to finish this final remark here.
Yep.
So there's no mover and a seconder. This is just for information?
It's just for information, and it's up to the members present if they want to continue asking questions at this
Yeah.
point or wait until it comes back to council in its more official capacity.
Okay, and that's, any further questions regarding that? Seeing none, adjournment of the public meeting. This fulfills the requirements of the Planning Act pursuant to Section 34. The public meeting portion of these applications is now adjourned. And thank you everyone for coming. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to open the council meeting and then get a motion to adjourn and come back in 15 minutes to give everybody a chance to grab a little supper.